our particular crew was very close knit. Four of us enlisted men always took our vacations together while here. We'd go to London each time. Being a lead crew, for example, we got a 3-day pass each 2 weeks. And so we would always go to London and stay at the I guess it was the Red Cross Hotel down there at Piccadilly Square. So it was just a routine. We got on the Dis station train and went in, and a couple hours we were in London. So, and we'd get on one of the boxy taxis that were around then and go every place, get on the tube, go any place. So it was a very happy time from a past standpoint. We went to Mainz, M-A-I-N-Z, I believe they spell it. It was on the Rhine River, and we were to bob a bridge over that river because it was a time they were expected to try to invade mainland Germany. And one of the more vivid recollections I have of missions is the weather conditions. Always, we were in winter conditions, of course, and it was always, there was never, never saw the sun, if you will, and often you would have to break through the cloud deck at say 12 or 15,000 feet, and so that was always the predominant thing that you worried about was weather conditions. And we did go on to Mainz. We did not ever see fighters, but we had some heavy flak over the target, and that was the thing that. And as Germany's territory became more compressed, they were able to add more 88 flak guns, if you will, to a more compressed area. So you had more and more flak as the war got along. And we were always waked up, which you have read 1,000 times, very early. We would brush our teeth, if you will, and go to the mess hall. And one of the things you've heard 1,000 times is on mission days you would be served fresh eggs. And so that was always a big deal. I don't remember other parts of the food other than that they always had orange marmalade in the mess halls here. And I never did understand that because that's not a common American preservative, but orange marmalade. Anyway, we would have an early breakfast. Then, in my case, I always went to have a short prayer with the chaplain. His name was Captain Tresh, perhaps. I've forgotten it just right now. Anyway, I'd have a short prayer with him, and we would then be taken to the equipment hut where we picked up electric flying suits, parachutes, escape kits, small escape kits. They gave each individual before a mission. We would then eventually be put onto a six by a big truck and taken out as a crew to the hard stand. Wherever, as I said, it'd be a different hard stand, it'd be a different plane, it'd be something different. But that particular mission, we went to hard stand for the white cargo. The hard stands in those days were always had a big, huge pyramid tent, and that's where they kept the guns, and that's where the mechanics worked from in the bad weather. We would, when we would have gotten there, the planes would have already been loaded by bombs. The planes would always be loaded with the gasoline and whatnot. And the crew chief would have started the engines and warmed them up and that sort of thing. I don't know who the crew chief on that particular plane was. We didn't, of course, mix with a lot of the ground crew because it was always someone different. the first thing, of course, that the gunners would do would be, of course, to get the guns out of the tent and load them up. The ammunition would already be loaded within each rack. And there were at that time, I think, 12 guns on the ship rather than the conventional 13, because the radio room by that time gun had been taken out of all the ships on the 100th bomb group, the dome for the radio room. But we, as I remember, the start of it, we had some weather as usual to get through, but nothing unusual. And we went in over the North Sea somewhere between, well, in the neighborhood of Heligoland, which is just off Denmark, and turned in at that point. I've been told that we were covered by the 355th and the 357th fighter groups, 355th going in, 357th fighter group coming out. We rarely ever saw them because they normally were much above us and just trailing along, if you will. But we went in and hit the IP and turned in, and in this particular case, I never saw the flak ahead of us because they were just covering up that whole area because we were trailing in a bomb group of, I think the reported number of bombers that day were 1,003. And so, of course, they already had our altitude figured out and all that. And so they blanketed that particular area with flak right over the target because they knew what the target was. And in fact, the interesting part about that mission was that they were trying to damage the German 6th Panzer, which was reported to be transferring from the West Front to the Eastern Front to face the Germans. So that was one of the things they were trying to get, as was the transportation area. We, my navigator, Lenny Fruman, had told me afterwards, he said, when we looked out at the flak over that target, it was just solid black. And he saw the flak, I didn't. But we, right over the target, we got hit, and it sounded like, it's been reported by many people, it's kind of like rocks on a tin roof, just, you know. And one of the more vivid thoughts I had, excuse me, I'm sorry. One of the more vivid thoughts that I had at the time, because we had dropped immediately out of formation, and I looked about and saw nobody else. And I said, gee, they got everybody but us. A rather amazing thought. But then I realized that we were there alone. At that same time as when I said earlier, they had gotten 4 other ships in front of us, actually. And we came home then all the way by ourselves, immediately at a very low altitude. And one of our prime thoughts at the time, which we had been told, if you get isolated, you're going to be attacked immediately by the Luftwaffe. Well, fortunately, they were not up in force in our area, and we never saw a German plane all the way back, and we came back. Of course, we dropped down below oxygen level, probably flying at, he was trying to keep it as high as he could, of course, not to lose too much altitude. And we came back all the way across Germany without even seeing a burst of flak, not seeing a fighter, not seeing anything. Now, at a later date, my top turret gunner, Algie Davenport, said that there was a single P-51 flying along overhead of us all the way out. So, and I never saw him personally, but he saw him and kept track of him. We came to the coast and passed out again past the Heligoland. And as soon as we did, the pilot had us start dropping because we'd lost gasoline. We had lack of power. Our pilot told us to start dropping out everything that we could that was surplus weight. And we dropped all the guns except my gun in the tail and the top turret man's guns. All the ammunition. Even took out some of the plate metal protector on the sides of the ship, and that was thrown over. So anything that was excess. We had assumed from what our navigator thought that we would probably go down and off England into the sea there. So they had radioed our position. And when we passed over that particular position, we saw 4 of the British rescue boats circling right down in that area. That was quite a coincidence that they knew exactly where we might go down. Fortunately, of course, we didn't. One of the thoughts at the time, when we pulled out from the coast of Germany, was that the co-pilot was saying, well, I don't think we're going to make it back to the base, and why don't we go to Switzerland, excuse me, and to Sweden, because that was one of the closest land bases. And the pilot said, no way, I'm going to take this home, and he did. And he came in with 2 motors, and I've talked to him later after the fact, because both motors were out on the same side. And he said it was very, very difficult to keep the plane trimmed up and on the leanest gasoline, of course, he could, and all that, to keep it flying. But he made it all the way back, and as I say, deserved and earned the DFC because of it. Well, I relied on God, frankly. But we had excellent training, and it's always a bit of luck, being in the right spot at the right time, really. It was always, the weather in wintertime flying to me was a extreme concern. We went on one mission, of course, in which the weather conditions were so bad that we had to climb over 25,000 feet in order to clear, to be in the clear. And I think we actually bombed at about 27.5. And when we started back, and I don't know if this is of interest to you, it has nothing to do with nose art, but when we started back, we had to start back down through this massive cloud weather. And immediately planes were going in all directions. But in this concern of trying to get down, our pilot forgot to keep his oxygen mask free of ice. And of course, deprived of oxygen, he passed out. And so our co-pilot then just started taking us down as fast as he could to get below 10,000 feet so we'd have enough oxygen. And when we broke out of the clouds, which we were probably about 1,000 feet, we were flying down a valley with mountains on each side. And I couldn't believe it. I looked up mountains there and mountains there. We were flying down a valley, now that is fortunate. You have to be lucky to get through that.